So when you think of a creative laptop, the kind of device you can take anywhere and everywhere with you and still get your photo or video editing done on, there's probably not many options that tick all of the boxes. That's where the Aero 17 from GIGABYTE could come in as a device that is aimed at creative work that ticks almost all of the boxes with just a few compromises. The build of this laptop is great, and it exceeded my expectations. With subtle branding, a clean-looking geometric speaker grille pattern, and a sharp look throughout the machine, the design sits pretty well with me, and I'd be more than happy using this laptop in most, if not all, situations. At just over 2 centimeters thick and weighing 2.5 kilos, it's by no means an ultrabook, but it also doesn't have the chunky thickness of other gaming laptops. It's more of a middle ground device, with an emphasis on functionality and simplicity, and I think that works in its favour. The use of metal all around the device is a lot more prominent than I'd expected, with the entire display unit being made of metal, which provides great protection when in a backpack or being carried around. And the palm rest is also almost entirely aluminium, which makes it much more comfortable to use, and far less prone to wearing away in long term than plastic would. So the keyboard on the Aero 17 is hands down one of the best laptop keyboards I think I've ever used. If you're used to a mechanical keyboard like I am, then you'll likely find the typing experience extremely satisfying. There's just enough travel to feel comfortable, and the firm but non-clicking bed on each key creates a clean but controlled typing experience. There's very little key wobble on each keycap, and it's positioned perfectly for comfort without making any noise when you're typing. I wrote the entire script for this video on the Aero 17's keyboard, and it's quickly become one of my favourite laptop keyboards ever, especially thanks to its perfectly sized keycaps. The arrow keys are positioned nicely, which is something that not every laptop can get right, and a full numpad is great for apps like Blender, where camera shortcuts are accessed with it. With full RGB lighting that can be controlled through GIGABYTE's Control Center software, customization is easy. You can go full gamer mode and have the rainbows everywhere, or just keep it simple like I do with a solid white backlight. No matter what colour or pattern you choose, typing with this keyboard is a fantastic experience. The trackpad on the Aero 17 is good, but it's not exactly amazing. It's fine for most applications, but like most Windows trackpads, it's not exactly great for serious work. The embedded fingerprint scanner is a nice addition, and it makes logging into the laptop really quick and simple, but it takes up a little bit too much space on the trackpad for my liking, and it makes the entire corner useless, which really begs the question, why is it here and not on the power button? Thankfully, the ability to click anywhere with the trackpad is present, so one-handed trackpad use is pretty easy. And the click is nice too, it's not too loud, and you don't need too much pressure to trigger it. Now the I/O on this laptop is absolutely incredible. It's 2020, and not only do you have 3 USB 3.1 Type A ports, but you also have a full-size SD card reader, which is super useful for photo editing in my case, an Ethernet for faster gaming connections, HDMI out, a separate microphone and a headphone port so you can record voiceovers easily, a Thunderbolt-enabled Type-C port, and a mini display port. Since USB Type-C isn't universal yet, and a dongle hub is not really the ideal solution to carry around, having the ability to connect external drives to edit from directly without an adapter, without giving up on those devices that have adopted USB-C, is really nice to see. While I do normally prefer charging over the USB-C port, it does make sense to have a separate port for charging, and while we're on the topic of power, the charging brick is a little bit substantial in size, but that's justified considering the hardware inside this laptop. Intel's 10th generation CPUs offer unprecedented performance, allowing you to throw the most demanding tasks at it without any issues. And the 10750H CPU inside of this laptop is absolutely no exception to that rule. Along with that, we have 16 gigs of DDR4 running at 2666 MHz and an RTX 2060 Studio, so it's fair to say that for the price, this computer has some incredible specifications. With a base clock of 2.6 GHz and a boost of 5 GHz, performance is seriously quick. And it's also fully unlocked, so you can overclock it if that's your jam. But personally, I've been more than happy with the base clock speeds. You can edit video, play AAA titles at 144 frames per second, or do literally anything that's CPU heavy wherever you are, even if you don't have access to a power outlet. Running some CPU benchmarks as an illustration of performance, the 10750H scored 1137 single core and 6074 in multi-core using Geekbench 5. In Cinebench R20, the CPU scored 2605 and remained pegged at around 70 degrees and a clock speed of 3.3 GHz. Good job Intel, I'm impressed. Of course, these are just simulated workloads, so take the results from any benchmark with a grain of salt. Instead, let's look at its real-world performance for creative work. With heavier multitasking between apps like After Effects, Photoshop or Premiere Pro, it handles them pretty much flawlessly. CPU-heavy tasks like transcoding video or non-GPU based rendering works great, and at least in my experience, thermal throttling was pretty much unnoticeable when it occurred. Through drawing in air from the sides and exhausting it out to the back, thermals can be maintained at an efficient level even when the base of the laptop is covered. And that's how throttling doesn't occur very easily with this machine. Instead of restricted airflow when it's on your lap creating problems, this cooling technique means heat can be cleared easily from the components, which is how you can get such great performance without having it restricted by temperature. Tasks like motion graphics in After Effects with various adjustment layers and animations are speedy. I've been able to edit 4K raw footage in Premiere Pro with active color grades and no proxies, and it handles it well. Now the display on this laptop is both great and not so great at the same time. It has me a little bit divided, and let me explain why. There's a few really good elements to this display, like its 17.3 inch size, which is just amazing for video playback, as well as its color certification by X-Rite Pantone, which is fantastic for creative work like color grading or graphic design. But at 1080p, it's just a little bit low on the resolution side. And although it enables faster performance as there's fewer pixels to push data towards, editing 4K video would be a little bit nicer with a higher resolution display. But that being said, at a reasonable distance from your eyes, it's pretty easy to forget that this is a lower resolution display and just enjoy the color accuracy of it. On the plus side, it's an IPS panel, so the brightness range is great. And with a 144Hz refresh rate, you can make the most of the powerful internals through gaming when you're not working. I've been really enjoying Apex Legends on this laptop, and at mid to high settings all around, I can get well over 120 frames per second throughout gameplay, with lows of around 95. Thermal throttling doesn't appear to impact gameplay at all here, which is great. Games like GTA 5 run really nicely at a comfortable 144Hz in high settings, but it feels like I'm wasting this GPU on gaming. After all, RTX Studio is designed to be a creative workflow graphics card, and that's really where it comes into its element. Using DaVinci Resolve to edit 4K RAW from my cinema camera with a LUT and color grading nodes applied, a few text elements and adjustment layers, it's pretty much seamless. In fact, I edited this entire video using the Aero 17 in DaVinci Resolve, and the playback and the entire experience was absolutely incredible. I think that's just a testament to how powerful this laptop is. Honestly, I spend most of my time in DaVinci Resolve, either working on a personal project or a new video for YouTube. And being able to have more power than my desktop in something of this size, well, it would be putting it lightly to say that I'm impressed. One of the biggest parts of an RTX enabled GPU is the ability for hardware accelerated ray tracing, which is especially useful for software such as Blender, which has a ray tracing rendering engine. Rendering out a sample from Blender's website took just 52 seconds per frame, compared to 3 minutes and 6 seconds from my GTX 1070 Ti and Ryzen 7 1700 on my desktop. Both ran with 50 samples using the Cycles render engine at exactly the same resolution, and it's pretty clear that RTX on makes a massive difference. After all, you can't ray trace on conventional GPUs, which is why the difference here is so massive. Having the power of ray tracing in a laptop that you can fit in a normal sized backpack is incredible. If you're used to a desktop workstation where you have to do all of your Blender render, Cycles, whatever stuff, you can do it with a laptop and do it without losing any performance. So it doesn't really matter whether you're tracking text in After Effects or working on a product trailer in Blender. There's so much potential with the GPU inside this machine, and the power inside is just incredible for the price. Now unfortunately the battery inside this laptop, at least when you're doing stuff that's really demanding, is not going to be amazing. But let's be honest, that's expected. Gigabyte advertises 8 hours of use on battery, but that's at 20% brightness with the Windows power level set to conserve battery. In reality, for video editing, you're looking at around 2 to 3 hours maximum of non-stop editing with the brightness turned up to maximum, and honestly the battery lasts a lot longer than I expected under heavy loads, but that still doesn't mean you'll be editing or animating for days on end. You can extend the battery life easily through lowering the power level in the Windows menu, and that's definitely the most effective method of balancing performance with longevity. So to get the most out of the hardware in this laptop, you're probably going to want the 230 watt power supply connected. But you know what? That's fine with me. I'm happy to carry around a pretty substantial brick if it means I don't have to edit everything in a workstation like my desktop. It's irrational to expect a desktop replacement laptop like this to be free of cables. With such great levels of power, I was definitely not expecting days on end of battery life, but it still exceeded my expectations. Now, compared to its Apple counterparts, this computer offers a lot of really great stuff. From the ray tracing graphics card to the overclockable CPU and the RGB keyboard, there's a little bit more as well. And it's all about looking into the future. The ability to upgrade RAM or add an extra M.2 drive, the presence of Thunderbolt 3 and the extensive I/O ports all add up to one pretty secure device for long-term use. Not only can you upgrade in the future should you ever need more power from this laptop, but you'll never need to worry about connectivity for external devices. See, a laptop like this, there's a few ways you can look at it, but my takeaway is this. No, the trackpad is not the best, and the screen resolution, well, that could be a little bit better too. But as a creative workstation, not only are you paying £600 less than a 16-inch MacBook Pro, but you're getting a whole lot more in return. First of all, you can game on it. You can't do that with a Mac. But not only that, you've got the future upgradability, the color certified display, the ray tracing graphics card, and the incredibly effective cooling solution that doesn't get too loud under load. Gigabyte have done an incredible job in creating a laptop that not only has the latest and greatest 10th generation CPUs, but it also has an amazing keyboard, a great build quality, and a professionally color calibrated display. And for the price, I don't think there's many better deals than this laptop.